All right, ready? The Keystone 15 oil pipeline is so popular. Ever since the Republicans won control of the Senate, it's become the Taylor Swift of political issues. We can act on the Keystone pipeline, said the House Speaker John Boehner as he launched into his description of the next Congress. The House, which believes strongly in the power of repetition, has already passed a bill authorizing construction of the final phase of the pipeline 8 times. It was also the first thing the future Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell mentioned in his post election pre conference. When you say energy these days, people think of the Keystone Pipeline, but that is only part of it, he said. You have to wonder who has been hanging around with him, since many Americans are actually capable of thinking about energy for quite a long period of time without ever landing on pipeline from Canada to Nebraska. McConnell then went on to describe an energy agenda in which the only specific item he mentioned was, you know what. I mean, the employment figures connected with Keystone are stunning if we could just get going. Actually, employment figures are not that stunning. There'd be a few thousand workers necessary to build it, but if we want construction jobs, we've got a ton of roads and bridges that need repair. Keystone is certainly overplayed as a job creator, mostly because the vast majority of jobs are temporary, said Tom Boersma of the Brookings Institution. It's hard to figure where all the enthusiasm comes from. The Keystone 15 would carry out oil from the far sands of Canada into Nebraska, where it would hook up with the existing pipeline to rehook to the Gulf of Mexico. Environmentalists hate it because oil from the tar sands expels more carbon into the atmosphere. If the pipeline isn't built, the oil still gets to the refineries by train, but at least we wouldn't appear to be encouraging the energy industry to drill the worst stuff possible. The only people who would seem to have an intense practical interest uh, in which way this plays out would be Nebraskans, who will have to live with the pipeline until the people who control the tar sands land in Canada. That group happens to include the famous campaign contributing Koch brothers. So, questions answered. Keystone opponents were heartened Tuesday by the defeat of Representative Lee Terry, a veteran Omaha Republican and staunch Keystone defender. Some Nebraskans are worried the pipeline would create spills that would threaten the water supply. When you start to mess with Nebraskan water, you definitely have a fight on your hands, said Jane Klebe of Bold, Nebraska, an anti pipeline group. Terry was one of the only 3 Republican members of Congress who lost out Tuesday, so defeating him was quite a coup. Although he was the Nebraskan Republicans' weakest link during the government shutdowns, Terry made news when he dismissed proposals that members of Congress forego their salaries for the duration of the crush. I've got a nice house and a kid in college, and I'll tell you, we cannot handle it. Also, some voters disliked Terry's campaign ads, which linked his opponent to everything from terrorist beheadings to the parole of a serial killer named Nicklon Jenkins. And then there was the last minute surprise that came when Nico Jenkins announced in court that he was endorsing Lee Terry. But about the pipeline, if the Keystone Project came up for a vote in the new Senate, it would probably draw enough Democratic support to hit the magic number of 60. Then it would be up to President Obama, who is constantly being criticized by Republicans for standing between American and a jobs rich energy boom. This would be the same president who's opened up massively new areas for oil exploration, increased the sale of leases for drilling on federal land, and cut back on the processing time for drilling permits. Story of Obama's life. His trots he trots down the center, irritating his base, while Republicans scream at him for failing to do something that he's actually been doing all along. In the end, it is completely up to the president, but the story is really about the Republicans. They're about to take over Congress and allow us how they can govern. So the first thing they are going to do is hand a windfall to the energy interests that shoveled nearly $60 million into their campaign's terrific campaign. Let them prove they're better than that. There's a nice bipartisan energy efficiency bill that's been sitting in limbo in the Senate. It would help manufacturers reduce energy costs, promote model building codes, and do a bunch of other useful things. If the Republicans would forget about posturing for their campaign contributors, drop Keystone, and pass the energy efficiency bill instead, it really would be a new day. We'd all be incredibly impressed. Honest.
That's too slow.
What?
It's too slow.
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
But the trouble is that